There's something narratively profound about the contrast between these two, where Cassian is thrown out of his death into a team that doesn't care or trust him, and Deidre is so willing to devote herself to an empire that sees her as equally disposable as a droid. Welcome back, Star Wars fans, and thank you for clicking on my review for Episode 4 of Andor. Every single week, we gather right here to discuss all the episodes and all the spoilers from a galaxy far, far away, and we're kicking off this week's episode right from where Episode 3 left off. Cassian and Luthen are off-planet, and our hero is being sent onto a mission he barely knows anything about by a man he's not even sure if he trusts. And that's the main theme of this episode: trust and distrust, keeping your friends close but your enemies closer. And it explores this idea through several perspectives. You have Cassian meeting all these new people that they themselves don't trust him. You have Luthen Rail playing his chips very close to his chest when it comes to Cassian, and even when it comes to Mothma, who makes her debut in this episode. And we even dive deeper into the Empire itself and how it's going to become involved in this story. And while I am enjoying the slow, methodical pace of the series as it explores the gray shades of morality when it comes to the humanity on both sides, be it the Empire or this upcoming rebellion that is brewing and gestating, it's just getting ready to go, I'm not sure that the slow pace of this specific episode works, only because we got 3 episodes last week to binge. Don't get me wrong, the show has been from the beginning a slow-moving, gritty spy thriller that is very character-driven. It feels very intimate when it comes to our lead character in Cassian. But because we had so much progression with 3 episodes, this one can feel somewhat lackluster as this transitional episode from when the story gets set up in episodes 1 through 3 and from when the story actually, hopefully, happens in episode 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 maybe. Do not get me wrong, it is not an episode without qualities. The tension at every single scene just about hits its boiling point, and Cassian is just thrown into this world of spying and covert operations, working under the radar with all these new people that he doesn't know, he doesn't trust. This is not his world, and so you feel constantly like he's just in way over his head. But essentially his story here is trying to get information for himself and about the people around him, but in a literal sense, it's just about him getting from the plane to the base where the mission will actually launch from. And that's essentially how I felt about this episode. It's very much just this transitional point. It's very fun, the conversations he has with the new people he meets, particularly with the waif from Game of Thrones. I had no idea she was going to be in this show. And once he meets the rest of the crew, including the kid from the end of the fucking world, that's when the tension begins to boil. That's when he begins to analyze these people. However, they're doing the exact same thing to him. And this dynamic where everyone is just side-eyeing one another, holding back from saying certain things, from revealing certain information, calls back to a conversation early in the episode between Luthen and Val, where he finds Cassian to be disposable. He's useful, but should he jeopardize the mission, his life is expendable. And I want to see more of this deep dive into the corrupt morality behind the rebellion, where in its pursuit for the ultimate goal of defeating the Empire, how many lives can or should be lost. That's what the show does so well. Compellingly humanizes both sides, not just in their qualities, but in their faults. Even our villain from last week, essentially what he does in this episode is get fired, humiliated, and moves back home with his mother. This show is not afraid of showing that more vulnerable and fragile side of any of these characters. A nice contrast to Cassian's journey through this episode, or Clam as he claims to be called, who finds himself in this shaky ground with this team, is Lieutenant Deidre Miro, whose spaceshift key Cassian stole last week, and now she seeks the responsibility, she seeks the trust of her superiors and, let's say, her team, the side she's working for that she believes in, and now she wants to go explore what last week's team failed at. But now the Empire doesn't see this as a big deal, and that's probably what's going to allow Cassian and his new team to get this mission underway and get the rebellion. There's something narratively profound about the contrast between these two, where Cassian is thrown out of his depth into a team that doesn't care or trust him, and Dedra is so willing to devote herself to an empire that sees her as equally disposable as a droid. Mon Mothma, this episode alone gives her more depth than any of the previous movies, be it Return of the Jedi or even Rogue One. Mon Mothma is already well acquainted with Luthen Rael, as this episode established, and I love being back in Coruscant. This scene in his fake merchandise store just put a smile on my face. I love that his disguise as a spy is playing this pompous, flamboyant artifact salesman who arranges buys for her husband, but even the Empire is already suspecting Mon Mothma, changing her driver, and they have to arrange all these new distractions. And even in her own house, Mon Mothma feels unsafe as her husband completely disregards her when arranging this dinner with high-ranking Imperial officers. It shows the grasp of the Empire on really everyone from any social circle. We saw it last week in Cassian's rundown planet, how much the Empire has an influence there, but we even see it now in Coruscant, at the capital of where the Empire essentially was born, how much of an iron fist Palpatine rules over with. Before I give you my final thoughts on this week's Andor, I need you to start the conversation about it in the comments below and let me know how does it compare to the 3-episode premiere for you, anything and everything down there. And if you're enjoying the weekly Andor reviews, if you're enjoying this Andor review, or if you just love movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. So like I said, episode 4 of Andor is not a bad episode whatsoever. Tony Gilroy's gritty spy thriller sensibilities continue to permeate the entire narrative that shows once more how it's so much more character driven rather than plot driven. It just feels like we're still setting up after such an exciting setup last week. So I bet it's all going to pay off after this slow burn. But it can feel just a little bit too slow at points with this divide between episodes, and maybe we should have just gotten 4 episodes last week. But that is just my take on episode 4 of Andor. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'm here every week to discuss Andor, so I hope to see you next week, and thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to my channel members for always supporting this channel, and I'll be back very soon, so until the next one, love each other, and love the movies.